Welcome into Sportsbook Review and SBRPicks.com. I'm your host, the Big Men on Campus. I'm on many videos, but we're talking boxing today. A dream fight coming up. Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez tonight, pay-per-view. It's Saturday. Joining me right now, one of my favorite people, one of my favorite boxing people, Peter Kahn from Forbes Magazine. He's a boxing manager. Before the call, he was even showing me all of his great pictures from his training days and Mike Tyson, all sorts of great stuff. Peter Kahn, we talk Mayweather-McGregor. Finally starting time to talk real boxing. Welcome in. How you doing today?
Jeff, I'm doing great. As always, I love being here, love being on the show. I like talking to you offline as well. People might not know, but you absolutely do have a wealth of boxing knowledge. So I actually really enjoy coming on here. And, one thing I want to say right off the bat, because I'm excited. Like, I'm like, I can't wait for tonight. And yes, we had Mayweather-McGregor. And one thing I wanted to point out to the people that watch this and might say, "Oh, you guys are terrible." Look, last week nobody anticipated seeing Roman Gonzalez get knocked out the way he did by
Yeah.
Rungvisai. It just listen. There's a reason that Chocolatito was minus 380. Okay, and even though we might be boxing experts and be in the industry and cover it and be a participant, doesn't mean we're going to get it right 100% of the time. Okay, so just take that into account. This is why they fight the fights. Otherwise, all we'd have to do is look at a fight on paper, pick the winner, and then no one would ever have to fight. Hats off to Rungvisai. Hats off to Roman Gonzalez to coming out after the fight and saying, I was in great shape, I was prepared, and my opponent was the better man. And you know what? The fourth weight class, maybe it was just a bit too much for him. But you know what? You got to love the sportsmanship. You have to love the way that Rungvisai took this fight out of the judge's hands. He cemented, if there were any questions as to how that first fight ended, he left no questions to be asked in the rematch. So I just wanted to point that out. We're not going to get it right 100% of the time, but we're going to be able to give great insight. And listen, leading into tonight's fight, I'll let you get started, Jeff, and I'll give my thoughts. But I think we're in for a treat.
Yeah, I think with Rungvisai, I think we could agree that that was just the first fight. How could you not think that the decision was poor? It was a poor decision. But again, Rungvisai just had Chocolatito's number. And even Max Kellerman and the various broadcasters that were on, I think we were all perplexed and disappointed at the outcome from Chocolatito. Again, though, I think one thing we did talk about was the four weight classes just too many? Sometimes you can't bite off more than you can chew, and unfortunately, he was just a really tough opponent for Chocolatito. But let's get into the big fight tonight. And before we get into it, I just want to just kind of talk about what boxing's doing for us tonight. And I mean, look, we had the mayhem of a couple weeks ago with that press tour and that everything that went on there, but whether you're a boxing fan, you're coming back to boxing, you enjoy it, or you're a purist, this is a dream fight. I mean, I really hope it lives up to it. We've seen some great fights over the years, even lately. Some of the Ward Kovalev brawls, and some of the great things we've seen. But before we get into the actual breakdown, Peter, you have to admit this is a boxing fan's dream. I mean, this is going to be truly a 50-50 proposition for the most part. You have young against old. You have kind of a guy that maybe he's coming on a little late versus a guy that's 27 years old and fought 51 fights against the likes of everyone important in boxing. It's just going to be quite the event tonight, isn't it? Should be a great fight, I would think.
To start in order, okay, my friend Dan Raphael, who writes and covers boxing for ESPN, said it perfectly in a tweet this morning when he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he woke up and it felt like Christmas and his birthday on the same day. And
yeah, sure.
It's because we're going to be treated, if this could live up to Hagler Hearns or Leonard Hearns or any of those great fights, right? That historically we continue to go to as some of those great historical fights that have transcended eras. If that could live up to that, then we're in for a treat. And to your point about boxing in 2017, uh, it is definitely boxing is back. The promoters are giving us the fights from a fan's perspective that we want to see. And look, Top Rank just announced yesterday that we're going to get to see Lomachenko and Rigondeaux on December 9th. It just keeps getting better. I mean, we're just going to see it's great fight after great fight after great fight. And look, as a boxing purist, I wasn't taking Mayweather-McGregor seriously, but from the pure entertainment standpoint, it is what it is. It was what it was. We knew that, but clearly it helped boxing. In that sense, I did write an article in Forbes this past week talking how Mayweather-McGregor still after the fight has garnered more digital impressions and more mentions than Triple G and Canelo. But clearly, Triple G and Canelo is one of those fights that we've been waiting for a long time. You have the 35-year-old undefeated champion, 89% KO ratio, 37 wins, 0 losses, 34 KOs, big power, great jab, boxing IQ off the charts. I mean, what else can you ask for? You then have, I believe he's 27 years old in Canelo Alvarez, 49 fights, maybe something like that. 49 wins,
49,
loss.
49
wins,
will be his
1 loss, and a
51st.
draw. Right, and you know what? That loss was to Floyd Mayweather Jr. Okay,
Right.
so and it was years ago. So you're talking about another guy that is a superb boxer, boxing IQ off the charts, not so shabby with his KO ratio either. Okay, both of these guys can knock you out. They could box your ears off. We're going to see a big chess game going on. This will not be boring. This won't be guys walking around the ring, feeling each other out. They will be throwing punches. They will be laying traps. They will be throwing out bait. They will be going in for the kill. They will be picking their moments. And this is going to be that scenario where it's whoever makes the least mistakes is going to win. You hear that in football, right? The team that makes the least amount of mistakes is going to win this game. Well, tonight in boxing, the fighter that makes the least amount of mistakes and provides that opening for their opponent is going to win. So before I give you my opinion, I'm curious to hear your thoughts and breakdown. I've already published mine in Forbes this week, so mine's already out there in the public, but I'm curious to hear yours, and then I'll recap my thoughts.
Yeah, if we look at the line quickly here, and again, this is at most offshore books, 160 for Gennady Golovkin, about 140 for Canelo Alvarez. And look, Gennady Golovkin's the favorite here for a couple different reasons. He's the bigger fighter naturally, and he's an A-plus boxer. Plus, I mean, we can feed in. I think this is a 50-50 fight. I don't think it's one way or the other. I think you're coming into this fight virtually even. I said it earlier in the week, and I'm going to stick to my guns with this. I think Canelo Alvarez has matured meticulously. His improvements technically are something that I think will negate the power that Gennady Golovkin might have. I think he's a specimen of an athlete right now. I think he's a guy that going forward is the face of boxing. He's 27 years old, and he's been in 51 fights going into tonight or after tonight. He's the more of promotional future. I think for Golovkin, I've seen a guy that has declined a little bit. And I've seen a guy that I think has come into the sport a little bit too late. Against Kell Brook, before the knockout, and I'm not going to take anything away from Golovkin. He put on a vicious beatdown of Kell Brook and ended up knocking him out technically, he threw in the towel. But Kell Brook fought pretty well. He had pretty good offense in that fight. And I do think without the knockdown, I could make a case Danny Jacobs won that fight. I thought he did a lot of what he wanted to do. For me, I think Triple G is becoming a little reckless and sluggish at times. He's sloppy, going for way too many headshots. I just think Canelo Alvarez is a better defender. I think he's the faster fighter, and I think he's going to take advantage of a fighter that's wearing down and came into this boxing thing that we love so much a little too late at this kind of level. I think going forward, Saul Alvarez is the face of boxing, and I got to tell you, yesterday looked And again, you look like a specimen to me. I'm ready for a war tonight. Plus, we're getting plus money on Canelo. When I can get a virtual coin flip at plus money, that's always going to be the way I look, to be really honest with you. I just think I want to lay. I think we have the slightly better fighter at a better age here. I'm going to go with Canelo Alvarez to win this fight. I think he'll win by majority decision and go forward. And listen, I would love to have seen Danny Jacobs Golovkin again, to be honest, but we get this fight, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more. What do you think, Peter, about this fight, and where's your head at?
Well, I have to say I agree with you on many fronts. Yesterday, I published my ultimate better's guide for the Canelo Triple G fight, and I did take Canelo Alvarez at plus 135. If you go to sportsbookreview.com and you go to the boxing props page, then you'll see what I used as far as my source, and where I shopped a lot of these different these odds. So to go over it really quickly, and I just pulled up my own article here. Like I said, taking Canelo Alvarez to win at plus 135 is great value. Like you said, it's a 50-50 fight. So I will say this though, if it was plus 135 for Triple G, I would have taken that as well. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's all about line value. When we're going to talk about betting, and then we're going to talk about what I think is going to happen in the fight. Because sometimes it's all about risk reward, and it's about finding where the best value is, and that's what I try to emphasize to people when betting on boxing. There's very few things that you can bet on with boxing, so you have to make sure if the value's there, jump on it. So if you believe that Canelo Alvarez is going to win this fight, well, it's a no-brainer. You absolutely jump on plus 135. Now, to that point, at plus 750. A KO, TKO, or DQ is also great value for Canelo Alvarez. I took that as well, that Canelo Alvarez can win by TKO or KO. It's not inconceivable. I have him winning a decision. However, how do you pass up laying 100 to win 750? You really can't. Another one of the best bets that I had was Alvarez by decision plus 190. And that's probably could end up becoming the best bet of the evening. In keeping in mind that we're picking Canelo Alvarez to win, you're almost getting double your money there. It's probably the safest bet. And lastly, I'm a sucker. Okay, I always talk about not falling into a trap bet. But after the Danny Jacobs fight in March, on March 18th at Madison Square Garden, I was there. And after that fight, you could have argued, like you said, that Danny Jacobs could have gotten a draw. It's not inconceivable. Well, you know what? I'm going to throw $100 down at plus 2,000 that tonight's fight could be a draw. These are two, like I said, high boxing IQ, off the charts, mechanical, technical, smart fighters. They're not going to take too many risks and chances. This could become a great boxing match. It could become a slugfest. But at plus 2,000, how do you not throw 100 down that one of these guys, that they're each going to win 6 rounds? It's conceivable. So those are the bets when we're talking about the sports betting side of it. Now, getting back to the pure just boxing, yes. In my opinion, it could be a 50-50 fight. At 35 years old, you always wonder if a fighter, if this is the fight, he's going to get old overnight. Is this the fight? And, Gennady Golovkin can say what he wants, right? He can say, well, I let Danny Jacobs have a little bit of success so that this way they'd finally make the Canelo fight. I'm not buying that, okay? I'm not buying that. No one gets hit, especially from a guy like Danny Jacobs, who's a finisher, because anybody can get knocked out at any time under the right circumstances. So I don't buy into that. The other thing is, after that fight, Triple G was beaten up a little bit, and it was noticeable. And I'm not going to use the Kell Brook fight as a metric. Look, Triple G is unbelievable. One of the best middleweights of all time, no doubt about it, okay? But I'm not using Kell Brook as a metric because Kell Brook's a welterweight, all right? He jumped up 2 weight classes to fight the best middleweight out there, who also happens to have power, and ended up breaking Kell Brook's orbital bone. So when you look at these, where the trend is, right? Where it's trending. You then have somebody in Canelo Alvarez who took on a super middleweight at a catch weight, right? Took on Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Okay, and he toyed with him. He abused him. He abused him for whatever 10, 12 rounds, whatever
You
it
would
was.
agree
Abused him.
he could have knocked him out whatever he wanted. Let's be
I
real.
think
I
he just
mean,
wanted to give him a beating and get the work in.
yeah, sure. I agree.
Okay, I think he could have knocked him out. But what I'm saying is that, to your point, yesterday at the weigh-in, Canelo Alvarez was clearly the bigger man. Okay, I think that he's been looking to make the jump to middleweight for quite some time. The other thing that no one's really talking about, and maybe I'm noticing it because I just know the guy. I've known Abel Sanchez for 23, 24 years. He's doing all the talking. Sometimes it's just, to me, the only thing that's odd is I wonder if there's a little doubt because Abel is making all of these claims that Alvarez is going to get KO'd. He's just been a little bit more vocal than usual in advance of tonight's fight. So I don't know if that's fear. I don't know if it's insecurity. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's confidence, right? He's a great trainer. Triple G's a great fighter. But my heart of hearts is that sometimes there's just a time where somebody grabs the reins and emerges as that face. And I think that Canelo Alvarez, look, he's been under the big lights. He's fought the big fights. Nothing's going to phase him. There's going to be none of that. These are two professionals. I think it comes down to who executes their game plan. I think that when it comes down to boxing, Canelo has the advantage. And when it comes down to power, Triple G always has that in his back pocket. But all things,
But you would
being
agree he's
equal,
more technically sound, Canelo. Canelo's much more technically sound, and we saw in that Danny Jacobs fight. Triple G's going to struggle with that.
I think so. I think Triple G has one of the best jabs in boxing, and he's got such power. It's a little bit deceiving because what he does is he makes you feel comfortable and then he knocks you out. And I just think Canelo Alvarez is a more complete fighter. If Canelo Alvarez is standing at the end of 12 rounds, he wins a decision. That's my
I
pick.
agree.
That's always been my pick. If he's standing at the end of 12 rounds, he wins a decision. One of the props that I couldn't find, and maybe you can help me out here, was that both of these guys could touch the canvas during this fight. I really like that both of these guys could end up getting knocked down at some point during this fight.
Yeah, I actually was just looking over them here. There's plenty of props as far as both fighters knocked down. That's at plus 850 at 5 dimes. So
Well, you know what?
uh,
I really like that. I really like that because sometimes a knockdown is just based on balance and positioning. And when you have guys that are so technical and have punching power, it's not inconceivable that both of them could get knocked down. A flash knockdown early, maybe a late knockdown. It can easily happen. So look, remember when we're talking about betting, and that's a lot about what we talk about here. It's about value, right? And it's about, just like I wrote in the Forbes piece this week or yesterday. I think that the odds makers got it wrong on the draw. I think a draw, if there's any fight that has a strong chance of being a draw, I think this one is it. And I think that, the value of plus 2,000 is definitely there. But
also
at the same
keep in
time,
mind, and I just want to point out an odds thing here. Make sure, as always, we stress this on SBR, whether it's college football, boxing, whatever you're betting on. Make sure you're looking at multiple books to get the best price because BetOnline.com has 20 to 1 on a draw. 5 dimes has 18 to 1. Make sure if you're going to bet a big play like this, a big number play, make sure you're getting the best of it. Don't just because you didn't look at another page, it takes 3 seconds, you're going to miss out on a better price somewhere else. So again, I just want to make that aware. Make sure you're looking at different books to make sure you're getting the best price back when you play a game.
yeah, and to your point, when I in my Forbes piece, I link to the props page on sportsbookreview.com for that point because today you're talking about plus 140 value. After the weigh-in, it was plus 135 pretty much across the board. But there were books that had plus 126, plus 140. But the number that seemed a little bit more consistent was the plus 135. That's the number that I got just in the event late money came on Canelo. I wanted to make sure I had the best value at that time. So, those are my thoughts. I can't wait to watch. Extremely excited about this fight. Like I said, 2017 has been a gift as far as the fights that we've been given. There really hasn't been a lull. Even in the heavyweight division, things are starting to heat up a little bit with the announcement of October 28th with Anthony Joshua and Pulev. It looks like we're going to get Deontay Wilder and Ortiz. So we have Joseph Parker and Hughie Fury next week. So all these things are starting to take form, and just keep looking forward to it. Do you have any other thoughts on tonight, or any other questions that you wanted to ask me, Jeff?
Yeah, overall, I mean, boxing's really coming back to fruition. A lot of big fights, heavyweights, whether welterweights. We still have a ton of welterweights and lightweights to move as well. I mean, plenty of good fighters coming up. Plenty of fighters with questionable futures. What's Danny Garcia going to do next off of his loss to Keith Thurman? Where's Sean Porter go from here? Is Adrian Broner ever going to fight again? Is he in life thrown in the towel? A guy that I think needs some major
You
help.
want me
But
to answer this
overall,
question?
yeah, I actually would like to hear your point of view
All right.
quickly
So,
on Broner. I think he's a
okay.
lost cause.
Yeah, Broner, I'm not interested in. We just saw his most recent fight against Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia handled him with ease. Broner had zero success in that fight. Now we see his meltdown a few days ago. Then it's the same pattern of I need help. We're all adults here. We're responsible for our own actions. And so far, things just aren't working anymore for him in the ring, and out of the ring. And you know what? I would have been okay with his loss to Garcia until he got into that post-fight interview, and then it just
Yeah.
ruins it even more. So, not interested in talking about Broner. As far as Danny Garcia had a good fight against Keith Thurman. It was a tough fight, but I think for him, he needs to just actually get active at this point. What happened? The monkey wrench that was thrown into the equation was we had Sean Porter fight Andre Berto for the mandatory to fight Thurman for the WBC title. Thurman then had surgery on his elbow. He then got married, and he is going to be back in action pretty soon. And I think that Porter was supposed to fight on the Mayweather-McGregor undercard. He had to pull out for some personal reasons. So all those guys are Al Haymon guys. So they're going to fight. They're going to fight each other. It's just, probably looking more like 2018, unless something gets announced for December. But yeah, the welterweight division is still strong. Jeff Horn's sort of in no man's land now that Manny decided not to take part in a November rematch. And Horn's been, in my honest opinion, avoiding every tough potential optional opponent. And I think there's not a lot of interest there. Errol Spence Jr. also won in May in Sheffield against Kell Brook. He hasn't defended his title yet, although I heard he is probably going to fight in Dallas before the end of the year, and they're working on an opponent for him as well. So that's the welterweight division. We see where we're at. The light heavyweight division has been very active. We've seen the fights going on there. Heavyweight division I mentioned. Cruiserweights are in the middle of a tournament, but doesn't get a lot of exposure. Super middleweight. Did you watch Did you watch the show last week? Did you watch the Mayweather card last week with Benavidez?
Uh, when they fought, yeah, sure.
Yeah, solid super middleweight. Once again, it's a division that right now doesn't have a lot of big names. You have the middleweight division, which we're watching tonight with Triple G and Canelo. Junior middleweights, the Charlo brothers moved up. You have Demetrius Andrade, who is sort of under the radar, but probably the best 154-pounder out there. Lara is also in there as well. Then you have a couple of lesser known names that have become champions because of the Charlo brothers moving up and because of Canelo moving up. Then that brings you down to welterweight. We just talked about the 140-pound division. We all know Bud Crawford is the undisputed champion, even though he just vacated one of his belts. the bottom line is he's the best 140 pounder on the planet. So I mean, we can go on and on and on. And then we have the lightweight division. We have Mikey Garcia. So we can cover this week in and week out. I think that 2018 is also going to have a lot of great matchups. We still have a lot of great boxing in 2017.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's going to be a fun future here in boxing as we head into the winter. Before we wrap it up, let's just wrap up our picks here. For me, I'm going to just go. I'm going to go one play. I'm going to go Canelo Alvarez wins this fight under any circumstance at plus 140. You get that line at where are we at here? Get that at Bet Online. Actually, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go Heritage at plus. Well, now I'll stick with Bet Online. I use that book regularly. I don't want to quote a line that I'm not going to use. Let's use 140 at Bet Online. I made my points on what I think here. I think it's going to be a war. It's going to be a great fight. Peter, let's. By the way, I like your predictions, though. You're putting a lot of your eggs in Saul's basket here. I guess a Gennady Golovkin win won't work for you.
Listen, you know what? It doesn't work for me because the value's not there. So
Sure.
let's just look at it this way. If I'm going to put $400 down tonight, okay, and I'm picking Canelo to win at plus 135, and I have him winning a decision at plus 190, those are two solid bets for me, right?
Sure.
But let's say that he wins by a KO or TKO at plus 750. Well, guess what? So I'm out 200 on the other. Well, no, I'm still winning plus 135, but now I'm at plus 750. So I lose the 100 on the plus 190 for the
Oh, sure.
decision.
No,
But I'm ahead. And guess what? If I'm out $300 going in to the fact that these guys draw, I'll take plus 2,000 and lose 300. You know what I'm saying? I mean, from my
oh no, I totally
perspective,
get it.
the risk reward, the only way I really lose is if Triple G wins.
Sure. No, I get you totally. So you're gonna go Canelo Alvarez win, Canelo Alvarez by decision. You're gonna Canelo by KO or TKO, and you're gonna take the draw. So you're covering everything. Kind of just stacking everything. Um, I can't disagree. For me, it's going to be a war. It's going to be a close fight, I'm sure. I'm going to enjoy it. I think we're all going to enjoy it as boxing fans. As always, Peter Kahn, you can find him at Forbes Magazine. You can also find him on Twitter. Peter, why don't you plug some of your various outlets here, and we will wrap it up.
Absolutely. Please follow me on Twitter at Peter Kahn. The last name is Kahn. You can also go visit my fight guys at themaven.net/fight guys. And moving forward, you'll be able to visit thefightguys.net. But right now, follow me on Twitter. Read what I publish in Forbes. And I'm looking forward to being on here next week, Jeff. As always, big fan of SBR, big fan of your show. So I could talk boxing all day long, and really looking forward to tonight.
Yeah, I am too. Peter, we always appreciate having you on. I am the big man on campus. You can find my work as always everywhere on SBR. For me, Peter, it's a big day. I got college football day, lot to do here. But we are SBR Forum. Catch us every week. Make sure you go to SBR Odds when you're looking at your odds tonight. Make sure you're getting the best price. Head on over to the rating guide. Make sure the sports book you choose is the right one for you. Everyone have a great day. Let's go, Canelo.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.